Hey guys, welcome back. It is round 2 of the Trans Tasman. Last week was not too favourable for the Australian teams. Let's see this weekend if it does go a bit better. If we go into the first game, the Hurricanes versus the Rebels. Going by last week, the Hurricanes, they really just scored a bunch of tries against that Waratahs team. It was more than 100 points between the two sides in Sydney. The Rebels last week, though, they were thrashed by the Blues. So this week around, the Hurricanes might think that they have a big chance here, though the Rebels, they do look a bit stronger in some cases. If you do look at the starting team, Lomax, he comes in the number 3 position for the Hurricanes to strengthen up their front row with Numia, the other prop. Dane Coles continues at the hooker, a very strong hooker over there. Ulysses continues at the hooker for the Rebels. Elof at number 3, and then Orr at number 1. They will want to prove a point after last week not doing too much against a very strong Blues front row. Then in the second row, the Rebels also struggled there last week. They struggled in a lot of facets of play, so obviously they made a couple of changes. Liotta, he continues at number 4 up against Blackwell. Then Scrafton and Hosea, both of them come into this side this week around. Hosea, that just improves the Rebels side. He's a youngster who is just in good form for their team. Then there's a couple of shift arounds for the Rebels in the loose forwards. That's been happening all season around. Wells moves from 8 to 6, Kameni from 6 to 7. And that is all to make space for Naisarani. With him in their side, they do have a lot more grunt in their front pack. He is one of their strong runners with the ball. You can expect him to score a try or so in the game as well. The loose forwards for the Hurricanes also had a good game with a couple of good breaks as well, with Princip Karifi always at breakdown time, and then Devin Flanders, who is starting to become a big runner of the ball these days. At number 9, Joe Powell continues at number 9 for the Rebels. Taumatain, he gets a start again since the start of the season. He hasn't gotten a lot of starts since Campbell has kind of taken over that position. In number 10, Lega, he's in at number 10 there because Love, he got that injury last week. So Lega, he was in early, but he did quite well to hold down the fort there. He is more experienced as well. Carter Gordon, he is a little bit more inexperienced than Lega. Tumua, he moves to number 12. That's the first time I can remember this season that he is playing at 12, the captain for the Rebels. Tumua, he's been kicking so well for the team, managing the backline so well as well. So just from one week performance, I don't think it's the best move of them to move him around. He's up against Laumape. Laumape is a big runner of the ball. Tumua is probably one of the Rebels' strongest defenders, a very hard tackler as well. Sometimes you don't think of him as a big defender, but watch out in this game for a couple of big hits. Magne moves from number 12 to 13, also a big runner of the ball, up against Proctor, who's probably one of the standouts in the back line for the Hurricanes this season. Out wide, Wes Goosen, he gets a bit of a start as well. You almost forget sometimes that he does play there because these days he doesn't get a lot of game time. Callaway, he's at number 14. Boy, the Rebels have missed him since he played in Japan since last year's Super Rugby. He's back for the rest of the Trans Tasman, and they really do need him. He's a very dangerous scorer, very quick off the mark as well. 11 is Kiribeti versus Sevilla, two strong guys as well. Sevilla last week had a good game as well. I think he scored 2 tries as well, looking like he's back in form, but Kiribeti is a strong defender as well. Worth at number 15, up against Geordie Barrett, Mr. Rocket Boot himself for the Hurricanes, just slotting over everything from long range. On the benches, there's a couple of guys to look out for. The Hurricanes, they do have a strong front row with Amua, Rakete Stones and Fidao coming on for them. I think probably a bit stronger than the Rebels is Hansen, Gibbon and Sordoni. There's a couple of more experienced guys on the Rebels' bench than when you compare it to the Hurricanes. The Rebels, they have Haylett Petty, Hardwick, Tuttle and Lomani on that bench, so a bit more experience. With the Hurricanes, the experience you can look out there is Liam Mitchell and Gareth Evans. Further than that, it's a bit more inexperienced. Visinia, he's making his debut for the Hurricanes, but he has played a bit of Super Rugby before. Guys, making my prediction here, I do think the Hurricanes showed how dangerous they can be on attack last week around. They do slip a couple of tackles as well and allow a couple of tries as well. The Rebels might try and exploit that. I would have given the Rebels more of a shot if they didn't shift around to Mua from 10, but now Yes, their squad is a bit stronger, the Rebels, than last week, but that one key change does make me think the Hurricanes will win this one by 14 points. Guys, moving on to the next game, we see it is the Force versus the Highlanders, and this is more of a difficult one to call because the Force was one of the close teams in Australia to actually get a win last week. They actually were 1 point off of getting a draw against the Chiefs, just losing that game. The Highlanders, they also had a good victory last week against the Reds, who won the AU season, so good for them as well. So both games were pretty good for both sides, so they didn't change too many players on their starting teams. The two starting front rows remain very strong, with Robertson, Medrano, the two props for the Force, Kaitu'u, the strong second rower as well. He's been throwing very well to the second row that is starting this week, their preferred second row. I'll get to that now. The front row for the Highlanders, also their preferred front row as well, with Johnston, Tokalai, the two props, and then Ash Dixon, the guy that just scores so many tries off of the back of a maul. Paripari Parkinson up against Jeremy Thrush. That's a big battle. Thrush said he wants to upset a couple of people, and he wants to do it for a season longer as well next year. Paripari Parkinson, the youngster, is just such a brilliant workhorse all over the park. So I want to see how these two play up against each other, because they are pretty similar when it comes to play style. Thrush probably just has a little bit of a weight advantage. Evans at number 5, a bit of experience for the Highlanders there, up against Tamani, who also gets a start this week. That is the starting or the preferred lock combination for the Force as well, so that does strengthen their side as well. The Highlanders, a guy that they really missed last week was Frizzell. Not that it looked like they missed him on the scorecard, but Frizzell, just such a hard player on the park. He does so many things for the Highlanders on the park as well. Steals the ball, runs with it, scores a bunch of tries as well. He's up against Fergus Lee Warner, also a workhorse on the park. Billy Harmon, who's just really played well for the Highlanders so far, up against Koteka. Hugh Renton, he deserves to play again this week, and that's why he moves from 6 to 8. Last week he played 6, but Frizzell is back. That means Imeno does go to the bench. I do think that is actually a very strong move in my opinion, because Frizzell being a workhorse and Imeno as well, you can kind of work off of that in the second half as well. Anstey, he moves from 6 to 8 as well for the Force. I haven't seen him play at 8 yet, but he is a very quick guy off of the back of the ruck as well, or the back of a scrum, so I can see it working. Aaron Smith, the very experienced Highlanders number 9, the co-captain for the side. So much attack happens from him. Kubali has the task of watching him this week. Kubali playing in his 50th Super Rugby game, so also a big game for him. Both of that number 9s is probably two of my favorite number 9s in the world, so I can't wait to see how they go up against each other. At number 10, McIntyre, last week he controlled the team quite well. Last week I did say I would have probably started Miotti, and I maintain that I would probably start Miotti again this week. Last week he scored a try there at the end, and then yes, he didn't convert it, but hey, he does make a game change when he does start for the Force. Hunt is at number 10. He's been blowing hot and cold this season. More hot than cold, but he does have a couple of games where he doesn't play so well. But lately, he is in good form, does find a lot of gaps for the guys around him as well, and makes a lot of tries with these grubber kicks that he does utilize very well. Scott Gregory, the big number 12, up against Taefu, both of them big runners of the ball. Michael Collins up against Godwin, two experienced guys at number 13. Godwin, every game that he has played for the Force, they have been playing pretty well, him as the captain for the side. Then out wide, Kahui, he continues at number 14. Would have still liked to see him play a bit of number 12 as well for the side. Olawafela, the Englishman, at number 11. The Highlanders, their out wide is a bit different with Nareki, the hot stepper, going up against Kahui this week. Tompkinson, the big tackler, who's more or less actually a centre, playing this week at number 14. Sam Gilbert continues at number 15. Last week he also had a good game from the back, catching most of those high balls, also getting a couple of big up and unders through as well. He's up against probably one of the best fullbacks he'll ever face in a game. Rob Carney, the Irishman, very experienced, and it's another game for him to prove what he can do against a New Zealand side. On the two benches, both benches are very strong. That number 20s, I think, is a big battle when they do come on in Stander and Jimeno, both of them very similar players. Standard being the Raging Bull. He may not probably being a similar nickname for him somewhere in Japan. Reddy, Wagner, Holmes, very strong front row that comes on for the Force, very experienced as well. Highlanders, Coltman is very experienced, De Groot, and then Honek, probably not that experienced in the other team, but still a very strong front row for them as well. Dixon also being experienced for the side. Hamilton, Josh Ioane, the All Black, coming back for the team. So the Highlanders having a strong bench, but the Force not too bad for themselves. Ian Pryor, the guy that has captained the Force a couple of times. Domingo Miotti, the guy that I said should probably have started this game. A guy that can win a couple of matches. Unfortunately, not slotting that conversion at the end of the game last week. And then a guy that I've probably not seen too much of. They always talk him up, Strachan, or I'm not sure, number 23, who also has a hot step at the fullback, but he's not done too much in the games that I have watched. Guys, if I have to make a prediction here, I have to go with it. I think it's going to be that one where you're going to be shocked. I'm going Force to win this one by 5 points. I think it's the first Australian team to win it here. The Highlanders, they've been strong, but be surprised by this Force team who can surprise a couple of teams in this year's competition. Guys, let me know your prediction for the two games down in the comments below. Also, check out these videos next to me. Hit the subscribe button if you do like the channel, and then I'll see you for the next one. Cheers.